Hello there, how are you? Actually, I'm going to stop saying hello from now on and how are you, because you can't answer back. I mean, you're welcome to answer back, but that's what you say when you answer the phone, isn't it? But actually, a little fact, when I shared it on the podcast, the word hello, Hello, was invented by Edison. It originated from the word hullo, Hullo, and that was often used as a expression of surprise. So if you found something, you go, hello, what's this? I still would say it myself. I go, hello, what's that? It's kind of a very English thing to do. But when he was testing the phone out with Alexander Graham Bell, who invented the phone, he answered the phone and said, hello. And then Bell thought, oh, that sounds like a quite clear way to greet someone over the phone. And that's how it got invented, Hello. Yeah, so it's used for the phone, not for podcasts. So I'm just going to start with an announcement from now on. My announcement is, all my events are sold out apart from December 14th, Salt and Soul, handstand workshop, heels over head. As you know, all information is on my website, but if you want to book with them directly, you just go to saltandsoul.ie and you can book in for December 14th in Sligo. My guest today is Doug Robson, otherwise known as the Downward Doug. So Doug, this is his second time on the podcast, and I know I shouldn't have favourites, but I really like Doug, and I love him as a guest. He's funny, he's a deep thinker, and he's very authentic. And I realised that on this podcast, people like it because of the authenticity. I mean, I try to be as professional as I can because I want to be good at this craft of interviewing people. But at the same time, I don't want it to be too slick like a radio show. And I just want it to... I feel like when I'm chatting to the person, the mic just happens to be on and you're listening in. So... yeah, my intention is that we start real conversations. And I think what can get in the way of this is people getting offended too easily. People getting attached to ideas, when really ideas are transient. They come and go and we can always change our mind. And I think we're going to build more understanding with each other and the world if we have these conversations. So with Doug, we talk about training, we talk about teaching. Obviously, we talk a lot about yoga, but we also talk about things like cultural appropriation and terms like white privilege. And this is the climate we're living in these days and stuff we have to be aware of. So I hope that the podcast is interesting for you. Maybe you learn something for it. Maybe you just have a bit of a laugh listening to it. Either way, that would be fantastic. If you do enjoy it, as always, share it with your friends on IG Stories, please, or leave a review on iTunes. And because that really helps. Also, what helps is my sponsor, Small Changes. Organic, eco-friendly shop here based in Dublin, Ireland. They are all plant-based, whole foods. All their products offer refills. They have a juice bar, and they're all about a zero waste ethos. That's based in Small Changes, Dublin, Ireland, Drumcondra. So go and check them out. Yeah, so that's pretty much it for my intro. I'm going to mix the intro up a little bit now. No more hello, how are you? Because I want to do Edison respect and use it correctly. And I hope you enjoy this podcast. Without further ado, here's Doug. What's up, Doug?
Hey, Kevin.
Go on.
It's great to be here again. It's great to be here again. I feel like this is the only way we get to converse.
I know, it's
Through
true,
the,
right?
through the medium of a podcast. This is it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not a massive fan of speaking on the phone.
Yeah.
You?
I know, I like it.
Yeah, you like it.
I like a phone call. I just think you get to the bottom of things a bit quicker.
Yeah.
The text, also, it's less labor intensive.
Mm.
You're chatting, you're like, all right, look, this, and this. Also, I like it as a means of, I don't know, just checking in with people.
I think you're right. Maybe I need to revisit my relationship with phone calls because I've had so many mess ups through text, things misinterpreted, things that particularly in relationships.
Yeah, that's a big one, because there's no tone of voice in a message.
Yeah.
You know, you can't read the same word with different inflections can mean completely different things. So I think in a phone call, you can get to the bottom of it quickly. You get a feedback loop that's real time.
Yeah.
So you can confirm, are we meeting at this time? You know, as you've asked it, whether you are. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to text, it's like back and forth, and you might not get to the answer you wanted to, or answer one of the things. I don't know. Phone calls are just a good way of checking. Also with social media, sometimes I think you can think that you know what's going on with someone because you've seen that they in Tuscany. But, you know, you haven't actually asked them about their holiday. And there's a joy in telling people about what you're doing. And actually them having an interest in what you're doing. I think it does well to keep relationships alive, I think.
I think that you know, you said to me yesterday about you called me, but you worried that I might have been in class. This morning was the first time ever my phone rang in class. And I have it on Do Not Disturb. I have it on... not airplane mode, but
Do Not Disturb. Yeah.
I have it on Do Not Disturb, and I have it on silent.
I mean, there's two.
But for some reason,
take that off.
it overran the.
Do you want to check maybe that someone hasn't tried to call you twice? Because I think Do Not Disturb will stay there, but if they call you more than once, they assume that might be an emergency.
Exactly, that's what happened. I think that's what happened.
I'll give you a great get out of trouble with that one. I learned, because the first time mortified me in class. I didn't know what to do. My music went off, and then I was like really flustered. The best thing to do is say, "Oh, that's my phone," and then go to your phone, address it, and then say to the class, "Sorry about that, guys. It's just the yoga gods. They said I'm doing a great job." You're back in. You're back in.
That's good. I like that. How do you stand actually on, or what's your stance on podcasts over the phone? Have you done?
I haven't done any.
No.
I mean, I've done one where I was a guest on one, but I haven't done them myself. I mean, I've been trying to get Richie Norton, Strength Temple. Man, that guy is elusive, man. He's an interesting guy. Like you should definitely follow him. He's got his own thing going on. I met him at Wellfest. I knew who he was before. He used to live in Bali, and I asked him about doing the podcast. He was totally up for it. Then he was in London, but he didn't have enough time. And then I was at this festival this weekend at Soul Circus, and he was there, and I ran into him. I had my podcast kit, and I'd brought it not knowing he was there. And I was like, "Mate, come on, today." And he managed to get by me again. God damn it. I was like, I cannot. So he's the only one I've kind of suggested just to make it easier. But like, I like the face-to-face thing. I like chatting. I like doing something with it. Like when I had Tom Bliss and Courtney, the two that are coming onto my retreat with me, we met at a full day thing. We went training together during the day. They took me for a session, which wasn't a session, by the way. It was 4 sessions. It was 4 CrossFit WODs back to back.
Oh, shit.
I was in pieces. They're animals.
Yeah.
Animals. But yeah, I like that. I like that aspect, because then you get to meet them, you get to hang out with them, and you get to know them a little bit better. You know. Yeah. So I like that whole thing. For me, it's as much a networking tool as it is a informative tool. Yeah. You know. So
I should say as well, we're joined by the lovely Erica Bracken.
Yeah, I call Erica my Jamie when it's in this scenario.
No, you need to explain. Give the context.
She says I need to explain what or who Jamie is, and it's because Joe Rogan has Jamie, who's the guy on the computer.
Young Jamie.
Young Jamie, exactly. He's a fine young gentleman. He's always... I love watching... He sometimes pops things up on the screen before Joe's asked.
Man.
He's a magician.
Yeah.
So Erica's great. If we have any fact checks, any fact checks, she's always good to have there.
Especially about Finland.
If it's Finland, we don't even need to check the...
no Google needed.
Yeah, no Google needed. We're straight into it.
Yeah, we had a bit of... on the way here today... Erica unfortunately left her phone behind, but then it just shows you how good humans can be. Someone picked up your phone, didn't they? And they left it somewhere for you. Yeah, called it. So thank you to that person.
But this is what I'm saying about the current climate of things. Like, we're made to believe we live in an awful time.
Oh, interesting.
But the fact is, on almost all metrics, or I would go as far as saying on all metrics of well-being, we're up. You know, crime is down, violence is definitely down, poverty is down, illiteracy is down, dysentery is down. You know, eye patches are down. Like everything from the past that was bad, we are slowly eradicating. I mean, we've almost got control of all diseases. But my point being is that I think what's behind that is if you have a rising tide, all ships rise with it. So as the world has got better, we're actually into a better place.
But there's actually a book, you maybe were referring to it, I think it's called Factfulness. Have you heard of it?
No.
It's essentially, the main takeaway from it is that every single bad thing that can happen, how can I phrase this? The world is getting safer. We're living better than we've ever lived. And it shows you like the murder rates in the world and how they've fallen off. But what happens is we are fed news on repeat that keeps us scared.
24-hour news cycle.
24-hour news cycle, yeah.
And then you've got, there's certain politicians that are also throwing stuff our way, my whole thing is, and Erica's sick to death of me talking about it, but people like Alexandria Cortez, which I'm sure is a lovely person.
What's that acronym that is?
AOC.
AOC, yeah.
That's what everyone calls her.
Yeah.
And it's been great, I think, for her brand to have that little catchy nickname, but their whole thing of like, we need to change everything, we need to restructure society and change capitalism because it's not working. From my standpoint, I'm like, it is working. Like, it's not perfect. There's still people getting left behind, but it's working pretty well. So, if your house is mainly good, but you might want to change your loft, I wouldn't stop by tearing down the whole house. I would just start sorting those things out. So that's kind of how I feel about those things. So when people get a bit negative about like the trajectory of the world and this is a problem and this is a problem, and terrorism is another one that is down massively. Like, it was at its peak in the 70s, and somewhere like Northern Ireland, there was bombs going off all the time. Like, I think you're more likely to die of obesity now than in a terror attack.
So be scared of McDonald's. Be scared of them.
This is the point. This is what we should be talking about, Eat, those are big issues. Like, if we're talking about actual numbers of people being hurt by something, that's a big one,
But I think that the most popular documentaries on Netflix are crime documentaries, particularly like, true life.
I'm a sucker for them. I love them.
And there's so many on Netflix now. And supposedly it's because we have it built into us in our programming that we look out for bad news, because we don't really care about what keeps us alive. We want to find out what's going to kill us. What could the person down the road who's your friendly neighbor be a serial killer? And that fascinates us. And also I think it fascinates us to realize what we're capable of. So I find it interesting when you see someone who's like, this was Jeff, he was 19, he was the quarterback, and he was, handsome. And then
I don't think there's ever been a quarterback named Jeff. Never. Jeff is in the stands. I'm almost guaranteeing you.
Well, what are you trying to say?
He is captain of the chess team.
So, but then he's on the side, he was killing, people, like he's killed. And I think that is kind of interesting because we want to know what to look out for as humans. I think another thing that is programmed into us is distraction, and how.
What's that?
Hey,
all day, baby.
There's loads of quarterbacks called Jeff.
Sometimes it's not worth having Erica here on the phone. All right?
Thanks, Erica and Google. And the other thing is, we are addicted to our phones. Okay, I definitely am. But it's because once upon a time we would have to look out, and we want to seek new information and distraction because we can't just focus on one task. Because once upon a time in hunter-gatherer societies, if you were focused on one thing and something came to attack you or was hunting you, you wouldn't know about it. So you need to be able to change directions. But again, it's almost like that distraction, which our phone is giving us, and the bad news come together and create, I think, a real kind of underlying undercurrent of anxiety. And add coffee into that as well. And
yeah, look, by the way,
it's a party.
The nettle tea, which I'd heard so much about in the last podcast, you were never getting away without making me one. I mean, this it's beautiful.
What do you think?
It doesn't taste like nettles at all. Not what I thought nettles would taste. I mean, it probably does. That's probably the name is on the tin.
It tastes like the earth. Am I right? Mother Earth.
It's sweeter than I imagined.
There's nothing in it. I mean,
But that's what I mean. It's interesting. No, it's lovely. I can recommend. Is this not something for you to go into, Kev?
What tea?
Kev's Nettle Tea. Mate, I'm telling you, stop worrying about getting sponsors. Just start making your own products.
Well, actually, I had a couple of coffee companies that were.
Oh no.
I had a couple of coffee companies that were potentially going to sponsor the podcast, but I've now stopped drinking coffee. So shout out to Wall and Kyo if you're listening.
Well, I'm going to go a little further. Shout out to the Downward Doug that does drink coffee, that has his own podcast. If you are looking to sponsor a podcast, then may I suggest getting down with Doug.
There you go. I'll talk to you after about that. But yeah, so coffee.
So you're saying the perfect storm:
Bad
coffee,
news.
bad news,
Phone.
access to information all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Thoughts,
Thoughts,
I think
Doug.
thoughts. Okay, coffee for one. I quite like coffee. I quite like the taste. I think we consume it too much and probably quite often for the wrong reasons. So I think you definitely want to, as it with anything, watch your consumption. I personally, it was December last year, I was having a hard time sleeping, getting a proper sleeping pattern. And one of the things that really helped was taking coffee at least before 3 o'clock. That's the last stop off, is like 3 p.m. coffee. That's the last time you can have it. And that did help a lot. If you're talking about...
What do you mean, hold on, Doug? You're saying that drinking coffee before 3 p.m. helped you to sleep?
No, as in I wouldn't drink coffee after 3 p.m.
Sorry.
I phrased it in the wrong way.
No worries,
yeah.
I got you.
So I wouldn't have it any time after 3 p.m. I felt like that helped massively. As for our access to information, I think there is a problem here. And this is where I think the problem is. In your world here, in your subsection of where you live, something really bad happening this year is quite low. In 5 years, 10 years. If you open up that geographic location to Greater Dublin, it gets bigger. If you open it up to the UK, even bigger. If you open up to the world, it's probably a 1 in 1 chance that something bad is happening right now. And that's the problem. We have access to what's going on everywhere. So we collate all of this bad news and go, wow, the world is terrible. Instead of thinking, actually, for the most part, in most people's lives, nothing bad's happening. You know, in comparison to the number of people in the world, things are pretty good. So I think that's the danger. And because it's all bad news, we go, wow, we are screwed out there. Like, people are getting shot everywhere. People's heads are getting cut off. Like, it's not, I don't think it's, we forget how big the world is. Like, of course, something bad is happening somewhere. The incredible thing, like Jordan Peterson says, is why is it not happening everywhere? You know, we're supposedly just these apes.
Yeah.
In which case we should be, as men, particularly as bigger men, you should just take what you want. But we don't do that. We've decided that it's better to live in harmony. For the most part, most countries have decided it's better to live in harmony than at war, because trade is actually better. You know, if you're purely selfish, it works out better for you not to be at war. You know, so I think we cooperate more than we fight.
Yeah.
And I think that's worth remembering. And also, if the news of any description is causing anxiety, get rid of it. I mean, Naval Ravikant goes as far as saying,
I love him.
Don't listen to any YouTube, channels. Don't listen to the news. It is all wasting your time. It's all making you think that something important is happening when it's not. Forget about all that. You've got your own things going on. Don't get caught up in that, which I'm not sure how I feel. And agreed, I think he is one of the most interesting people. And
agreed.
I'd go as far as saying, if you haven't listened to his full 2.5 hour, I think it's almost 3 hour now podcast, he does little sound bites of 2 minute, 3 minute ones, but you can listen to the last episode is all of them at once. And it's just gold, pieces of gold all over the place.
It's just gold.
And
on Joe Rogan as well, he was phenomenal.
He was, and that's what put me onto him. I was like, what is this guy saying? After that, I kind of started listening to stuff about game theory, which was also very interesting. I forget the guy that he always quotes.
I'm familiar with game theory. Can you refresh me?
It is confusing, is what I can say. It's this idea that there's different games, there's finite games and infinite games, and depending on which one is there, you need to act accordingly. So the problems come in when people play finite games in an infinite arena. And yeah, that face that you're pulling is what my brain is doing as I think about it. But that's one of the things he quotes, and if I could remember the name of the guy he really looks up to that's written most of the books on it.
Right.
Taleb something. Jamie, can we get a little check? Taleb, Professor Taleb. If you listen to a Naval Ravikant with him, that is fascinating stuff too.
Ravikant is his name, isn't it?
Naval Ravikant.
Because I always call him Naval.
Naval, yeah.
Just because
it's cool.
second name is
I get confused too because the other guy I really like is Yuval Harari. Who wrote Homo Deus and Sapiens, and also 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. All fascinating stuff, you know. And he's also one of the guys that's telling you like things are good right now, and what we should be worrying is maybe about AI and what happens with that.
Have you seen The Great Hack?
I watched The Great Hack. Yes, I thought it was very interesting.
I mean, a spoiler. Well, I was going to say spoiler alert, but essentially it's about Facebook and Cambridge Analytica and that scandal, and how nations and politics within nations, particularly like voting systems, are massively affected by bots, which is an abbreviation of robots.
Nice.
Which is artificial intelligence. And one of the examples they gave in The Great Hack is, I mean, I think it's probably worth a watch. It is. It drags a little bit.
Yeah, they lose their way towards the end. You're like, okay, what now? Like, let's.
Yeah.
I think it's a problem with so many things. They want to say too much. Focus on a message.
Yeah. People may not realize this, but when you're on Facebook, you're being fed the same. They analyze your patterns, what you like to look at, and they feed you more of that. And this was
which kind of as a business model, that's not evil per se, but it makes sense. The ramifications seem to be working out quite negatively. But if you were in a supermarket, surely the supermarket's going to try its best to put the things that you want the most in front of you.
Yeah.
So I get that as a logic pattern, it makes sense.
But I want to think broadly. What is it? It said Musashi said, "Think broadly to see and then you see the way in all things," or something. In the Musashi, the samurai. But it is. I don't want to think broadly, and I get frustrated when I go onto Google and it suggests things, or YouTube, and it's the same stuff I always look at. Well, it doesn't matter what I look at, but like puppies and cats. No, but
elephants on skateboards. I mean, whatever.
I'm a real thinker. But I want something outside of that, you know, because otherwise, if our mind becomes too narrow, then it can create conflict. And this is actually what I wanted to, speaking of conflict, to ask you about. And I don't even want to talk about this, but I'm sure you will want to. It's anything you won't talk about. that some sort of dispute you had with someone online about words.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great way to describe it, because that's what it is.
Have you spoken about this before?
No.
Okay.
No.
And now, just to give context, it's been deleted since or something, has it?
Yeah, I couldn't find it again now, and you know, I wouldn't mention the person anyway, because for me, it's not about calling someone out and trying to brandish someone as, you know, this or that. I think that's the problem we do. We attach an idea to someone and they can't ever shake that idea off. You know, there's no redemption, which I think is a horrible place for the world. Like, there's always redemption, and thank God for that, because what are we going to do otherwise? How are we going to learn? You know, that's something we always talk about with people with getting banned for life from Twitter. You're like, come on, like, what is the way back? Like, are some people beyond it? I don't think so. I think everyone should have a shot at redemption. Not that she deserves it from me. I saw what she wrote as problematic, and you know,
give us the juice.
So, in short, wow, here we go. In short, after, if I recall correctly, the Alabama ruling about abortion, which was that they are now going to make abortion illegal. Now, I don't want to speak out of turn because I don't know it that well. Something that they're going to make abortion illegal, and doctors that perform it are liable to get prosecuted too. But I think there were more caveats to that than.
The timing, wasn't it? It was like under 6 weeks.
Yeah, it was. There were a lot of caveats about it, but the take-home message was that
A near total ban on
this American state had decided that you couldn't have an abortion and you could be prosecuted if you did. Okay, so that caused a lot of uproar. Now, I'm making no comment on that ruling. My problem with this was the person that was trying to get us on board with that, saying that this is wrong, which you're entitled to. If you think that's wrong, I totally get it. If you think it's right, I also totally get it. But her thing was, how can we live in a world where 12 white men get to tell us what we do with our body? And my point being that she was doing her best to try bring people together. And my point was, if you're looking to bring people together, I don't think mentioning the fact that these were males or that they were white is the best solution. And my point being is that why wouldn't 12 men be able to come up with a law? You know, there's nothing that women aren't allowed to tell. How can I say? Yeah, there's no women can't tell men about their bodies. You know, I feel like, if I'm being clear, 12 men could come up with a ruling that might be completely correct. It's not the fact that they were male or that they were white that makes the ruling bad. If you don't like the ruling, that's fair enough. You've got your own ethical standpoint. But don't say it's bad because people were male or because they were white. That was my real problem with it. So I said as much. And this had a lot of backlash. And, you know, they were like, no, you know, this is totally wrong. And I was like, look, I get, if you don't like it, I totally get that. But if you're trying to bring people together, don't start quoting people's race and gender. And for some reason, when that race and gender is white or male, suddenly it's fair game, you know. And what I find ironic was that, which is something we need to talk about too. What I find ironic about that was that when the ruling was the other way, Roe versus Wade, then it was fine.
Roe versus Wade.
That was the original ruling that allowed abortion.
Okay.
In most states. And in that case, it was 12 men that decided that too. So when 12 white men decided something that you agree with, no problem. 12 white men decide something that you don't agree with, this is a problem because they're white and male. I think there's a flaw in that logic. That was my point. Anyway, it started kind of a back and forth, and it's the first time I ever got into it on Instagram, which is funny because when people talk about it on Twitter, I'm always like, how do people get into stuff on Twitter? It's such a waste of time. And I was that guy. I got pulled in. I got pulled in deep, you know, and I was just like, I'm not okay with people acting virtuous when it's not that, you know. For me, you just have to be sound with your logic if you're going to take a stand on a moral standpoint, you know. So either race and gender don't matter and people should be treated equally and you apply that across the board, or you believe they do matter and you apply that across the board. But don't tell me race and gender don't matter, except in this case, when people are white and male, then it's a problem. You know, there's something inherently wrong with males or white people. I just think putting that front and center of someone's personality or being is wrong. Like, you didn't tell me anything about those people. You just quoted two immutable facts, which they have no control over. Just like I have no control over which one of those things I was born as. You know, so I can't change those things. Why should I be made to feel bad about it?
Yeah, agreed.
So anyway, it started a back and forth with this. And I just see a lot of this where it's this understanding that, you know, the pendulum has been in one direction for a long time. And now it's okay to slag off this other subsect of white and males because, you know, they had it good for a while. Maybe they did, but I didn't do anything. I didn't oppress anyone. Why should I be made to feel like I'm part of that group? I just think we're polarizing the world by looking at it as these categories, as opposed to just going, that's a person. I don't like what that person did. You know, I don't think we should be applying their immutable facts to what we don't like about them, is my point. And it's quite often done by people that are feeling like they're virtuous and standing up for something that's, you know, morally right by doing this thing that I see as heinous. Like, just, if you don't like this ruling, cool. Just say you don't like the ruling, but don't make it about that, because you are excluding a whole subsect of population. As you might imagine on Instagram, it maybe didn't come out that eloquently, if it has come eloquently out like this now, but we just talked past each other. And some of the people, a listener from this show actually got hold of me and was like, actually, I listened to your last podcast and I was appalled at how you felt about white privilege, and I just think, you know, it's not right for a yoga teacher to feel like that, or something like those lines. I don't want to paraphrase the person too. Again, I couldn't find that old post,
So they listened to our podcast.
yeah, and they'd heard me on here, and they were like, they weren't happy with me not subscribing to white privilege.
Yeah.
You know, which I was like, it's not that I don't subscribe to it. I just think it exists just as much as a female privilege might exist or black privilege might exist. I think in every grouping, there may be a privilege and there may be drawbacks.
Yeah.
And also it may be contextual, and it also might be geographical.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and my point was, if you think there's a lot of white privilege, go to Zimbabwe and tell all those people how privileged they are when they get kicked off their farm and killed for being white. It's not such a privilege there. And his point was, oh, of course it's different for them. And I said, that's the point. You can't use a term like white privilege if it doesn't apply across the board. And if it doesn't apply across the board, why are we using the term if it can't actually tell you anything? Unless you're willing to ask every individual, I see you're white, I assume you're privileged, do you want to tell me a bit about your background? In which case, what was the point in assuming they had privilege in the first place? So anyway, I had some back and forth. Then a woman from Zimbabwe messaged me to say, thank you for that, because I feel like this all the time. We get told we're bad people and people don't realize what's happening to us. You know, ironically, there's a privilege applied to people that don't live in Africa, that they don't realize that being white might not be great in other places. You know, even when we went to this Lululemon summit, I kind of get my back up with the stuff because it's just seen as the zeitgeist now, and like people just get away with saying stuff without thinking because they're just repeating what's kind of popular. It was something like, you know, take a step forward, your lineup, which is kind of a good idea to show you kind of where you are in your life. So it's like take a step forward if you've grown up in a single parent house or whatever it is, you know, a middle class background or whatever, and you walk forward and you realize that some people start in different places. And I understand that. I understand that some people's lives are harder than others. But one of the questions was, take a step forward if you see, if on TV you see people that look like you more often than not. And I was like, again, this is so contextual.
Yeah, exactly.
If I go to India, probably not. I remember watching a lot of Nollywood movies back home in Botswana. No, not so much. Did that have a huge impact on my like feeling of confidence? No. Like, I think we don't give people enough credit.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure people can still do very well if they don't see a lot of people that look like them on TV all the time. Like, I don't think that's the basis of how well they're doing. So it was just like off the back of that, this conversation came up, and a lot of back and forth, and we haven't spoken much since then. But I feel like we were both saying at the end of most, not rants, but kind of paragraphs. By the way, you know, I'm not angry at you. I just think this is important. And that was kind of nice to have that, you know. But it was funny to see to see how reactive people were to that. I felt like I was kind of trying to be reasonable.
But also people, they consider it to be their identity. They're like, and people try to put themselves in with minorities so they can almost fight their corner.
Yeah.
And almost it's like this anger's come from somewhere, and it comes out as if they're trying to take the moral high ground.
Yeah.
I think with Lululemon, that example, it probably may be doing it because it is an interesting thing to do, a group exercise to do, but well, I can't assume why they're doing it. But
No,
I think it's interesting, but it's very subjective.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, the task they were doing, the exercise, I remember reading up the first time it was used. It was like in a prison. And it was people visiting the prisoners to show how those prisoners had come from all a very similar background, and all the journalists had come from a very similar background, and those backgrounds were distinctly different. So, I'm not talking down to Lululemon per se, but that exercise that we did, it was just that question. I felt like that's one of those questions now that we don't even push back on. We're like, you know, we just assume that's okay.
You know, there's a teacher coming to Dublin very soon called Sam Lee Vitaro. Do you know her name? Verano, I think, perhaps. I'm saying this because she makes it all public on Instagram, so I'm sure it's fine to say. And I find her message fascinating because I think she was coming to teach workshops here. I thought, okay, so I'll follow her. And I thought the first day I followed her, I seen her stories, and it was just tons of stories in one day. When there's so many stories,
Oh yeah, it goes tiny. The
it's
little
just
dots.
They're just dots. They're just dots, and you end up just like flicking through them. I thought, oh no, this person, this poor soul, it seems to be having a bit of a meltdown. Like,
let me watch more.
yeah. So I thought to myself, like, should I message her to say, is everything okay, even though I don't know you? And I thought, I won't. I don't know her, so I'm not going to say anything. Next day, it was the same thing, pretty much. Next day, pretty much the same thing. Just a lot of very intense messages, and the content was all about cultural appropriation. If you're, white men and all that whole rhetoric, and I thought to myself, so I sent her a message to say, hi, would you like to be a guest on my podcast?
Great idea.
And she said, what's the podcast about? I said, teaching yoga mainly. That's what it's about. No response. I hope to hear back from her. If she's listening, I would like to speak to her, because I would like to have a conversation with someone who has those views, and to get an understanding of why they feel that way.
Yeah, because
where has this come from? Because I think that you're not your views. You oh no, sorry, that's not the correct way of saying it. Views should be discussed in a way that we don't attach our identity to them, because views can change.
I think it should be like clay. Your views should be like clay. You put them into a mold, and you be like, "This is how I feel now." Then someone could talk to you and give you some input or add something to it, and you'll be like, "Oh, that's interesting. Now I can change it." Instead, like you say, you shouldn't be attached to it and be like, "I vehemently believe in this, and no matter what you say, I'll still believe in this." I don't want to be right. I just want the truth, and I want the best access to that as possible. So I believe most of these people aren't. I don't think they're nuts, but I don't know that all of them have thought through what they're saying. I think a lot of it's repetition. A little bit like being a yoga teacher. When you first start teaching, you say the things all the teachers said before you. Don't do this and put your foot here, and you speak just like someone else. You parrot learn from them, and only later you go, why do I say that? Like, what is that? Is there a reason? And then you develop. But I don't think everyone goes through that process.
Right.
And it's important that people get pushed on their ideas, including us, including you, and including me, that I have to really think about what I'm saying to go, maybe I haven't thought this through. Maybe you're right.
Yeah.
And I'm open to that.
Yeah. It's good to... Sorry, Doug, go on.
I was just going to say, at the end of this, I'd said to this, in this Instagram interaction, I'd said, you are proposing that white privilege exists. The onus, or rather the burden of proof, is on you. How is it that it exists? Show me the evidence. Oh yeah, here's this paper, which I knew he was going to put forward because I know the background of it. It's a 1988 paper, which, by the way, wasn't a scientific piece of research. It was just how someone felt. I think it was like unpacking the knapsack of white privilege. And that's what they've hung this whole thing on. It's like, someone wrote a paper once. I'll tell you what, I'll write a quick paper, and now this is now truth.
Yeah.
Like, no one digs into it and goes, hang on, is there any evidence for this? And I think that's important,
I think, though, that the medium of Instagram is so limited there because, for example, this same person, Veterano, Sam, so Sam, I'm even afraid to say, like, this same girl or lady because, whatever, but Sam, she talked about white people pretty much shouldn't have dreadlocks, don't know why, and it's cultural appropriation. Now that's not verbatim, but it was in that was her thought, her message. And dreadlocks have been, there's statues of dreadlocks from the Spartan area. There's statues with dreadlocks from the Spartan area era. There's been dreadlocks, dreadlocks are not an African thing necessarily, but this whole thing of cultural appropriation to me is ridiculous because cultures take on other cultures. That's what we do.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Yeah. We're drinking tea.
Yeah.
Like, should that also stop? Because, you know, are the Chinese like just going, this is bull. Did you hear these two guys in Dublin are drinking our tea?
Yeah.
Like, that's how cultures work. I can't agree with you more.
Yeah.
And also, who are these people that are offended by it? And if so, I always say, offense cannot be taken. I mean, offense can only be taken, not given.
Yes, Doug.
You know?
I've used that one before.
It's so true, though.
Speaking of offence, actually, to
Okay, you're going to shout at me. You piece of shit.
About 2 weekends ago, I was in London and I watched The Book of Mormons. Have you seen it?
I've seen it, yeah.
Oh my God. So I was there in the crowd and it was so offensive, you could say, that people were just, I had my mouth covered with my hand.
Yeah.
I was laughing. Part of me, my face was hurting from laughing so much. I had to actually go to the bathroom and massage my jaw with the heel of my hands because my jaw muscles were hurting. But I thought, this is so refreshing. And I could see some people, I was kind of looking at other people in the audience, and they were a bit like, you know, offended. You could tell by their body language. And I thought, this is so refreshing. This is so brilliant. Like, that is what I love about comedy. People like Louie CK. I adore Louie CK. Yeah, I know. Okay. So he likes to masturbate in front of people, all right? That's Louie CK. Now, with Louie CK, I don't know if we spoke about this before.
I like that idea of that's on his tombstone. Louie CK. Like to masturbate in front of people. What a guy.
Yeah. So not everyone has, some people have sex fetishes, or who defines
No, exactly. Everyone's got their thing, right?
Their
Sure,
thing.
whatever.
And, you know, his thing was to say, look, is it okay if I masturbate in front of you? And Sarah Silverman said, for example...
She used to promote it.
So, yeah, go ahead. Or sometimes...
she would say, oh, come on. You know?
Just one for all time's sake.
Yeah, this is it. Like... This gets left out massively, and sometimes she'd say, "Nah."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, busy guy, whatever. And so but Louis CK, you know, he's gonna say something. You're like, oh, go on, is he gonna say that thing that we're thinking? And he says it, and it's like really offensive. Like he said, I don't know, babies with AIDS or something, and you're like, and it's like that is in the context of the joke. It's really really funny, and I think that is so needed. That's what I love about comedy.
Well, I think comedies are supposed to be that mirror and also that line. It's showing us where that line is. They daring to go where we haven't. Just like sports stars or extreme athletes do stuff that we don't dare do to show us where the limit might be, you know, and they may hurt themselves really badly. Just like comedians might hurt themselves really badly by getting it wrong, overstepping that line. But that their point is to show that line. And that's why comedy doesn't age well. And that's why social media is such bullshit when they go, oh my God, did you hear that joke he said 17 years ago?
Yeah.
You're like, it wasn't okay. Yeah, it's not okay now, but it was okay then. Like, it's not, we can't keep holding people to these sins of either their father or even their past self. Like, I don't think that's fair to them. That's their job, is they have to keep pushing the limit. Otherwise, they're not funny.
That's the thing. If you say something now, like on a podcast like this, or you say it in a video, that's always there, isn't it? And it can
That's what's new.
Yeah, it's new. Everything you do because you produce a lot of content, it can be traced back. You know, look at this video Doug made 5 years ago when he said something, and language is changing so quickly.
Yeah, exactly. What's allowed and what's not. But this is a great example. Okay, so that's like saying, let's put it back into the yoga context. Okay, here's a video.
Into the video context?
Into the yoga context.
Oh, yoga, sorry.
So here's a video of Doug 7 years ago doing a yoga tutorial video. And look how he's not cueing these things correctly. And then saying that's why he shouldn't be a teacher now. What if the teacher I am now is totally different? And I've learned from all those things.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense, right? That's illogical. But what we do with these comedians and go, look at that thing he said 17 years ago. Oh, he shouldn't be allowed to perform now because he said that back then. Like, where's this line for redemption? Where's this allowance for people to grow and to change? It doesn't work if we hold them to account to these things back in there, especially when they've addressed them, you know, which is the big thing. Yeah. Kevin Hart addressed what he had said.
Yeah.
That I found, and I love that he then said, I'm not going to host it because I don't want me to be the biggest deal about this event. Because even though you allow me to do it, one, I'm not going to apologize again, because that's how it always seems to go. It seems to be it's never enough, you know. But this is, I think there's this thing that people, you talk about identity, people attach their identity to showing you how you're wrong, or what things you've said that are no longer allowed. And it becomes a power trip, you know. Oh, by the way, you can't say that. Oh yeah, we know we don't do that. Oh, you know, that's actually really offensive in these parts. Quite often they aren't the spokesperson. And I think it's quite patronizing for them to take on the mantle as spokesperson for those groups.
Yeah.
Why can't those groups speak for themselves? And who's saying that these groups are homogenous in such a way that we can even assume that all of them feel offended by something? What happened to feeling that people are so individual that we might not be able to apply a group think to all of them? And that's where I think we are now. We should stop thinking in groupings. Like, we're so diverse now. Like, we're in a group of 3 Caucasian people. I grew up in Botswana. I live in the UK now. You are from the UK. You now live in Dublin. Erica came from Cork and now lives in Dublin. Now we're going to say that the 3 of us have some shared life experience just because we have the same amount of melanin in our skin. Bonkers. Absolute bonkers. We got the same amount of privilege because of the amount of melanin in our skin. Also bonkers. I just don't subscribe to this, and I think it's dangerous. This is what we've done for years. Hitler did something very similar. He said all those people that have this genetic aspect that is similar makes them all the same. We don't want that world. Like, give people the benefit of the doubt. But I would invite you to talk to this person, if that's what they would prefer to be called. I don't know. Judging from your action, I thought maybe. But Sam, was it?
Sam.
So talk, because I feel like people can be rational. And sometimes, I don't know, especially social media is tough because we do things that get reactions on there. Whether we like it or not, we may play into those hands, you know. So talking to someone, I feel like most of the time you'll be like, oh, okay. Like, I would love to learn about why they think those things, and I'm open to learn. So that's something I would like to hear about.
You know, I think because I think it's so important to be willing to evolve how you think and have the discussions, because I find this whole topic interesting and my views is constantly changing. When I was young, growing up, I didn't know any gay person. Right. And maybe it turns out they were growing up. Now they're adults, but you weren't allowed to come out to be gay because to be gay was a negative thing. You know, you'd even say, "Oh, that's gay," as in it's not good.
Yeah.
All right. Then, so then when I became an adult, I thought, okay, now I have gay friends. This is great. You know, I'm comfortable with this, and because I just wasn't used to it, and I used to be with like a bunch of straight lads, and so it's just something I got used to, and I thought, okay, now great, I know gay people, and this is fine, or good. Then the next thing was the transgender thing, right? I didn't know anyone who was transgender, and whenever there's change, there's initial part of resistance I have in me. I'm a bit like, I don't like to feel like someone's telling me what to say and telling me words to use. But recently, I was in a teacher. Well, a training situation. Like I was observing a teacher training, and one of the people put the hand, and it was talking about adjustments, physical adjustments, and one of the people put the hand up and said, "I'm a man, and I'd feel uncomfortable adjusting someone of a different gender." And then I noticed someone in the group found this kind of, I could tell by their reaction, they found it kind of offensive that this person was saying, this is my assumption, that they found it maybe slightly uncomfortable, this person saying a gender like it's male or female, you know, that this is an issue. But what I took from this really was, I never thought someone would find that offensive. All right, and I might close that window.
That dog. I can see you hating the sound of that dog. You're like, God damn, it's ruining my
sound
in here.
Okay.
I have really noisy pipes in my house, like from upstairs. And so when they turn on like the shower, like it rattles.
Yeah.
And if I'm mid like rant, I'm like, God damn it.
Yeah. Thanks, Erica. You're a star. So, and then I thought to myself, right, this person who may be offended by this, I would say I'm not, maybe they're like gender neutral. They're kind of like a bit like Jared Leto. Jared Leto? Who's a handsome
Jared Leto.
geezer?
Yeah. What do you mean? He's androgynous, though.
Androgynous, that's
yeah.
it. Androgynous, that's the word I'm looking for. And I thought to myself, I really like this androgynous person, or this person who's kind of like, beautiful looking person who's a bit like Jared Leto. You know, like Jared Leto. If you had to date a man, it'd be Jared. Am I right?
Man, if I've not thought about that once, I've thought
When I
about
say
it 1,000 times.
when I say date, I mean hold their hands, take him out for dinner.
Yeah,
right,
treat
dog?
him right.
Take it easy.
Treat him right.
But he's a beautiful looking man. Anyway, and I thought to myself, I've never thought that someone could be offended by male, female, and just made me think like it made it more real. This is actually a real person who maybe grew up and was, we're not always like, okay, I'm born a boy, I'm a boy, I have short hair, and I wear certain clothes, and it must be a challenge to kind of want to be gender neutral and have people not accept that. And now I am making a few assumptions here, but it just made me think. I came home to my girlfriend. I said, "You know what, Rach? I'm going to be more mindful when I address people as male, female, or because I remember I was in another studio and one of the students wanted to be referred to as they, not he or her. And initially I was like, "Oh, come on, this is a bit much." But now I see that if I meet the person and I see in their eyes that it would actually hurt their feelings, then I wouldn't do it.
Oh, but I think that's the important thing. I would like to think none of us want to upset someone, but I also think it's important to know that people aren't always doing things to upset you, even though it might upset you, So, I don't know. How similar is that to someone saying, Kev, I am quite religious, so I actually take a lot of offense when you curse, going, Jesus Christ. All right? Fine. You might want to stop doing that, but you might slip up and say it.
Yeah.
Is it for me then to go, Kev, you can't say that in front of me? I can tell you how it makes me feel, but I just feel like we're...
No, that's the difference. You have the right to say you can't say it, but I don't have the right to ignore you.
Yeah, this is it. Like, I just think it's such a long road. I understand. I get where you're coming from, which is quite a compassionate place, which I agree. If I could manage to remember, then sure. I've never had that problem, so I don't know that it is that hard to remember. I've never met anyone who's asked for that.
To be called they?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
I would have thought in London it's a bit more...
Yeah, but also I'm teaching less and less public classes now. So, my interaction with that is less. But yeah, it's just... I agree. I just think it's a case of we're just trying to be nice to each other regardless of the background. I don't think any one group should have more bearing on anyone else than the other. And that goes across the board. This is what I was talking about, being ethically sound across the board. I can't say that and go, but I think that group should be treated better. I don't think any group should be afforded any more rights than the others. That's what equality is. Equality isn't now propping up certain groups to have more rights. I think we should all have our rights. There should be inalienable rights that we're all afforded to just by existing.
Yeah.
You
when it comes to like being funny, I know you don't do many public class now, but being funny or in class, do you try to be funny in class?
Do you know what? I'm glad you brought this up, because you were talking on one of your podcasts before about you wanting to do some improv classes and stuff like that. And I always say it's such a unique set of skills to be a yoga teacher. You're not just a coach. You're
an enter trainer.
Oh, nice. I've heard another very similar thing like that. Oh, I wish I could remember now. Like a nice mix of words. But yeah, the idea is...
Not a yogi-preneur?
No.
I've started to say now, I can't say... now every time I say entrepreneur, like that. And I used to say entrepreneur. But now I'm like entrepreneur.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, I can't... Now I'm like croissant. I used to just say croissant.
No, I've always gone with croissant.
I'm starting to put like... When I say like a word that's foreign, I try and put the foreign accent to it.
Yeah.
I've only started doing that recently.
I do it actually with this country we're in right now, or the city we're in right now.
What do you say? Like, hello?
Dublin.
I
like to say we're in Dublin. I like to say I'm going to Brazil. There's a few like that. I really like putting the accent onto it. Paella. We'll really get into it. Speaking of which, we also discussed, Kev, how when you say, what is the word that's like?
Excellent.
Yeah, it's so like Mr. Burns. It's so good. Yes.
Do I actually say that?
No, you said it in the last podcast with your
I said it like Mr. Burns.
yeah, with your lady that had the twins.
Oh, okay.
So
Well, now I'm self-conscious.
no, I think it's
Go
great. Release the hounds. So yeah, I think it's such an interesting skill set
Yeah.
that you're kind of part stand-up comic, entertainer, public speaker, guru to some degree. You know, there's a lot of things to be a good teacher. Oh God, it's coming to me. What
I like
this
where
guy
you're going
said.
with this, by the way. I like where you're
It's
going.
just an interesting skill set, and to be good, if you imagine you have all these pillars of what makes you a good teacher, and instead of one being really good and the rest of being bad, if you imagine that was holding something up, that would make it crumble. Everything's got to have a basic standard, and then you kind of have to manage each one of those pillars well. So you can't just rely on just being funny for that hour. You know, you can't rely on just teaching the asanas for an hour. You've got to give a bit of everything, and giving too much of one may detract from another. Like,
That's so true.
Eric has seen firsthand when I want to be very organized, I'll write out in my book and I'll be so stringent on trying to teach this flow that's very complicated, it's very good, and I love this flow. And then in amongst that, I lose my personality altogether. No one gets to hear me say anything of interest. So you're trying to marriage all these things. So you're trying to make one solid unit out of what you're doing and not have it lopsided in any direction.
That is so funny you say that, man, but I think actually what it does come down to is being comfortable being your true self. Unless you're a shithead, then obviously don't be a true self. Pretend you're a cool person.
Be someone else then.
Exactly.
No, I would disagree. I would say
Be a shithead.
Be a shithead, because then the reaction would be enough that you could then learn from that. The problem is when people act like there's something else and they never learn. Say the thing you were going to say, get the reaction, go like, oh, that was a bad idea, and then learn from that. Oh, so sorry about that. It was just the clamp.
Yeah. Sometimes I'll do yoga glow classes, and I've done aloe moves as well. You know, online, and I've done YouTube videos. Sometimes at home, and I'm like, I just want someone else to take the lead. And I've realised my most favourite teacher, without a shadow of doubt, nowhere even close, is Dicey Decline. Dice, do you know who he is?
Yeah, I know who he is.
Right.
Where's his stuff? Where's it hosted on?
And the reason is, I love Doug Robson too.
Thank you. The Down with Doug, check it out.
His ab workouts. He was short on time. Check him out. Because where's he? He's Yoga Glow.
Okay, so he's with Jason Crandall.
Yes.
Okay, so he's in great company there too.
It's now called Glow, and Dice was my trainer on my 300 hour, and he's been on the podcast and stuff. He's on the early episodes. For a start, and I don't want to go on, but he's like one of the nicest people, sweetest humans you could meet, right? But when he teaches, even on Yoga Glow, you feel like you're in the room with him. He is so like authentic. He's so
personable.
Oh man, and it's like I don't know if you can teach that, but I think he's just he's really comfortable in his own skin, and when he speaks, it's like he's speaking to you, not like he's just going through the motions. And now lift your leg up, and now do this, and now. It's like he's chatting to you, and that is part of being. It's not really a public speaker, but being a good communicator, isn't it? And that is so.
Making every person feel like they're the only person in the room.
And you're a great communicator, Doug.
Well, thank you very much.
You are, though.
But I think when I teach classes, I was actually watching a Jordan Peterson video recently, which was about anxiety and openness and conscientiousness and a mixture of personality traits, and him explaining how nervousness in general, I've noticed, like my podcast next week is about nervousness, and how I interviewed a few people to ask them how they deal with what they do before class, you know, and I've had a real trajectory of being so nervous before class and wanting to vomit a lot of the time, and going like, this is a bad idea, I'm gonna look stupid, and part of it is I was so vain that I couldn't handle getting something wrong and people looking at me and not liking something that I gave them, which is problematic in itself, you know. So it's been this journey of going, one, it doesn't matter that much, you know, it matters less than you think, like when you get something wrong, and two, that you shouldn't shouldn't be that self-conscious. And then the other thing is that I've become more competent as a teacher. And John Peterson was pointing out that the more competent you become, the less nervous, but he used a different word. I forget what he used, but the less anxious. Like, again, I forget the word he used exactly. Neurotic. The more competent you become at something, generally the less, what word did I just tell you? Neurotic you're going to be, because you have this faith in yourself. You're like, it's been fine last time, it'll probably be fine again this time. And I think the experience of being a teacher and having multiple classes under your belt where different things have gone wrong, like your phone ringing, or like the lights going out, or a fire alarm going on, or you forgetting the left side, the more of those experiences you get under your belt, the more you realize after, it was still okay. Life still went on.
Yeah.
And when you go into each class with that confidence, it gives you this calmness to take the class and know that, not that you know every situation that'll come up, but you know that if a situation comes up, you can just handle it. You know.
Jordan Peterson also said, being a good communicator will enrich every single part of your life. Now, I sit across from a lot of people, and sometimes they're saying the right thing, their body's moving the right way, but you look into their eyes, their face, and they're not being themselves. Now, part of that is probably because they're being recorded.
Yeah.
Or maybe, I remember I used to work with this geezer, I won't say his name, but and I was like, what is the story? We'll call him James. What is the story with James? I was saying to one of my colleagues, and I said, I just can't put my finger on why I don't like the guy. That sounds terrible. And they said, he's not comfortable in his own skin. You can tell he just hasn't really doesn't know who he is. And I think that people can really feel it off you. I've actually haven't been to one of your classes yet, but I'm sure that type of using humor as well, and the skill of communication is, I think if you're not a good communicator, you're screwed in this.
You have a hard. You could actually have one of the best flows out there, great cues, but if you can't give some of yourself across there, why are people coming? Like, I think you're the same as me. I like to give my classes something that you won't get somewhere else. I like to start bringing in skills, like you were talking about knees over toes, and I have a similar process to you where I practice it and think about different ways people might get into it, and different options and regressions and progressions. But for the most part, people come back for the teacher. You know, it's partly the flow, but a lot the teacher. You know, why would I come learn Warrior 2 with you as opposed to someone else? You know, it's something else you're providing in that class. You're holding, I don't like to use holding a space because it sounds very yogic, but you're providing an environment, an ambience that may make people feel a certain way. And part of that feeling a certain way could be even a high five at the door on the way in, or something that you said during the class, you know, amusing, or the fact that you didn't take yourself too seriously. So coming back to your question, do I like to use humor? Yeah. Does everyone find it funny? Almost sometimes.
But you know, you got to be quite strategic when you
strategic. Yeah, I like to be strategic.
You got to be strategic when you use humor. Like if the teacher tries to be funny while you're in a balancing posture, I'm like, and just tell us how many breaths we've got left or what to focus on. But like, I think using humor works sometimes, you know. But generally when you're not trying to balance someone, like for example, and also I think humor works if you're not trying to be funny, but something happens and you react, you capitalize on a funny moment. Yeah, exactly.
I've got a few in the bag that I like to put out. You know, the problem is if you have students that come back, you can't use the same material. You've either got to get new material or new audience. Yeah, like, exactly. That's your thing.
Especially if they're sitting right at the front and you're like, they've heard this joke a couple times. I can't do it again.
But then if you do that enough times, you can make that a joke in itself.
Exactly. Do you ever do the one, this is a classic one, where like you're rolling to lie down and you go, you count down from 10, you get to 3 and you say 3 like a few times. You've done that?
Never do that.
Mate,
I never do that.
Have it.
No,
your stuff is better.
Lowest common denominator there. Yeah, I'm not. You're Laurel Hardy, mate. You're Laurel Hardy.
You're Gervais.
I'm Gervais. Exactly. Yeah, there's a few that I'm not even gonna. I actually got one. I'll tell you afterwards. Which
can't you tell us now?
And I can't because I don't want to give this to everyone.
There's yoga teachers listening. Give them one bit of Doug Gold.
All right. Okay. It's not even mine. I think I took it from someone else. After listening to your Brian Malone one, I am magpie galore. Like, I go to as many classes as I can and take as much as I can. So this one,
What happened to Brian O'Reilly? What do you mean, the Brian O'Reilly?
he talks about being a magpie.
Magpie.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and I was like, this is what the world's around. Everything's been done already.
Yeah.
The world now is about curation, not creation. You're just out there to distill as much information as possible.
Yeah.
People have access to all the yoga information. They come to your class though because they assume that you've done the legwork, you've curated it in such a way, distilled it down to give back to them in an easily consumed way. A little bit like videos.
What's that?
Thank you very much. Yes, so this is the one. So in a lot of positions, we're talking about that pelvic. We have that pelvic tilt ready. Okay, we tuck the tailbone under, bring navel in towards spine, shorten the distance between your ribs and your hips. All good things to say, but you can see some people still struggle. Often in Warrior 2, for instance, people bums really stick out because it's a little bit easier on the hips if you do that. So, and I hope I'm giving credit to the right person. Maybe Georgie Green told me this one. You want to think about the hips tucking under. So you want to think more Michael Jackson, less Beyonce.
I knew you were going to say that.
Oh, maybe Erica did. Yeah, I couldn't remember who told me.
I got that one from Dice.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, God. There I was thinking.
Say again?
I got it from Chris.
No, maybe everyone knows this one already.
Chris Feld.
By the way, I always leave a little pause after that for the laugh. Always. Always do. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Or, this is a good one. If they don't laugh, you just go, I normally get a better response for that.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, exactly.
And again, if you don't care, like, I feel like coming back to what you were saying about people being comfortable in their own skin, here's my theory on that, is that the person has known themselves longer than anyone else. So you're using them as the first point of contact of how you should react to them. And that nervous face, confused face.
Say that again. Say that again.
Okay, the person in question.
Me, Kevin, you, Doug. Erica.
Oh, this is good. Table. All right, we'll build it up slowly. So Kevin, let's say you.
Yeah.
Okay. Kevin, you've known yourself longer than anyone else. Yes.
Fact.
Okay. Fact. Right. So far, so good. So when I see you, you're my first point of contact of how I should be feeling about you. Okay. So if I'm looking at you, and you feel embarrassed by yourself.
Like now.
Yeah. Then I'm straight away going to go, that is suspicious. If he doesn't believe in himself, why the hell should I?
Mm-hmm.
You know, which if I look at you and you're fairly confident, I'm going, okay, he may be misled by what he thinks, but at least he believes that. So there's probably something in this, you know, and I feel like the same with embarrassment. Embarrassment is a closed system, you know, and if you don't feel embarrassed, it refers somewhere else. So if you do something in class that you make a mistake and you don't feel embarrassed, it kind of goes like, oh, hang on. Well, it's not just push somewhere else. You know, you don't have to take it on. You can turn it into something else if you want. You can mold it into whatever you want it to be. Like I've fallen out of forearm stand in a class before.
Oh, yeah.
And then that's when I realized I can roll out of them really well.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, from now on, I'm going to use that as gold to be like,
yeah.
If you go too far, you can roll out.
Exactly.
You know, and again, it's those things. You're like, what am I going to do with this situation? And also, I think there's something about humanizing yourself by not being able to do everything, for one, and two, showing your flaws, even if it's stumbling on words. I think people react to it. Same with these podcasts. We were talking about the editing and stuff, and I'm like, I want to show that I stumble on my words because sometimes it's the funniest thing I've done in the podcast. You know, even with the Instagram story. It shows that you're not on all the time, you know. I think I explained this before with Superman. They had to write kryptonite into the story because their sales were so bad.
Yeah.
Because they were like, why is no one... Because the human story is someone comes up against something that is a challenge and there is some sort of jeopardy, but somehow, despite the fact they have weakness, they still do well.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing, I think, as a teacher, when you're not trying to be so contrived or so well rehearsed that you know exactly what you're going to say at every moment. That's what you're talking about when you react to something in the class and it's funny. That's why that's funnier than if you had planned a joke, because it shows a bit of wit. You're like, he's in the room with us.
Yes.
He saw that. That's a shared experience for all of us. Hey, we're in a group here.
Yeah, that's good, Doug.
And I think that's part of it, you know.
Yeah. I'm conscious of your time. Can we carry on chatting?
Mate, we can carry... The only thing we have to do is go to your class.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
Yeah, we'll come to you.
And eat.
Yeah, and eat. What are we doing?
Okay, it's like 25 past 11. So
Oh, we're
that's-
good.
Sure,
We're good.
a couple more things I wanted to ask you, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Kind of going slightly back to the cultural appropriation thing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you use
Indian
Oms?
headdress in my class. Yes. Is it too far?
So yeah, what's your Indian name?
Yeah.
So no.
It's not what, it's how.
Whoa.
Thank you. Yes, go on. Do I use OMS? Well, again, spoiler alert for this next podcast I do next week. But I was saying how inspired by you, I don't do OMS only because I'm self-conscious of my OM. So I've started doing it in my own practice now because I really like doing it in class when I'm taking someone's class.
Do you want to have a go now? We can.
This will be the second time I do it. Yeah. Okay. Come on. Do I?
Or together.
Should I go for it? Should I just do one?
You lead it.
Okay. Eric is dying of embarrassment over there. All right. Everyone's doing this, by the way.
I'll do it.
Okay. Yeah. You can
You
do
do
this.
it as well.
Okay.
Okay, you do it as well.
All right.
It'd be like a harmony,
First-
like a barbershop kind of quartet.
Yeah,
Or
sure.
Quartet. What's triple?
Triptet.
Triptet.
A
Yeah.
trio? I don't know.
Trio.
So get a comfortable seat. Just get a nice tall spine. And just make sure we're nice breathing together. So deep inhale. And one exhale. Deep inhale. And now we are.
That's pretty good.
Because I was completely wrong key.
Do you know what's
Yeah.
Do you know what's weird about this too is because I have your head. If you don't understand the podcast, I've got his.
Yeah.
My headphones are linked into Kevin's microphone and
Yeah.
vice versa. So
So
that
I-
was a real trip when I was listening to you while I was doing. I was like, this is going pretty well.
And Erica left us hanging. she was like, "See ya."
She was like,
But-
no thanks.
Well, I would have been like way too
Yeah. But also, it's the thing is, it is. Some people spell it OM. Some people spell it AUM.
Yeah, that's the one I've always been taught with.
That's what I say.
I like that one.
You don't do that. You go oh.
I just got flustered. There was a lot going on there. I've got to be honest. Normally I would do that. I've also found what I quite like about the is I know the times it comes out well are when I'm not thinking too much about it. I'm not thinking about myself,
Yeah.
which is another thing I want to talk about. Filming yourself while doing yoga. Not when you're like recording a class to put on YouTube, but like when I use my phone during a class, I'm not doing that anymore. When I'm doing like my own session at home, because I feel it changes my
Yeah, same here.
it changes it too much. It takes me out of what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be feeling my body from the inside out.
I used to
And
do
what that
too.
does, it makes me think, oh, there's a camera on me. So if I want to show you something I've been working on, I'll go for it. But now I'm like, it's in my head constantly. And I feel like that's what's happening with social media. We're like, I'm doing this thing. What if a photo was taken right now? You're like, that's mental. Like that really takes us out of our bodies.
Yeah, I was like that at the start. I was recording myself, did the time lapse of me doing yoga, and then I thought to myself, hey, I'm not going to do that because I'm just self-conscious about. It's like it's a performance.
Yeah. And
yeah,
it's just not supposed to be for other people. It's supposed to be for me.
exactly.
When you were talking again on your last podcast about how far we let social media into our lives and how you're saying you're going to use it a little bit less, I was making those flyers with Canva, and you go to get them printed and they'll say, have you checked the bleeding lines? So basically you can't put any text too close to the edges because it won't come out properly. It kind of distorts the message. And I was thinking that is so analogous to social media. Those bleed lines, how far you're giving yourself
nice.
between your life and what other people see. And there's nothing wrong with having a big bleed line where you go, you know what, I will only show you this much of my life and the rest is for me and for what I have going on. You know, I don't have to show you everything.
But some people, though, if their job is like within that realm of like, I'm a lifestyle person, then they document their lifestyle.
I still think they should have something for them.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they do. But I think for me, yeah, as I said on the last podcast, I just like to, I just don't want to be constantly use my phone a lot, and that's why because what you do is you end up
You become a victim to yourself.
yeah, exactly.
You do it once and you're like, I should do this more.
So-
Sorry,
so
back to your question.
Yeah, So just to say that with I always do in my class. I like to do 3 at the start and sometimes 1 at the end, and I find that I like the the philosophy behind it. I don't go into it in detail in class because you don't want to.
You're limited time too.
Yeah, you got to like. But what I just put it this way, it makes me feel good, and I think when you chant, when you make that vibration, and everyone's on the same. Everyone's on the same vibration, it creates that sense of unity. And it's a bit like I say in class sometimes, it's a bit like a football chant, but you don't need to know the words. When you go to Croke Park, you sing a song and you feel connected to everything around you when you sing together. This is great because you don't need to know the lyrics. It's just one syllable. It's
pretty primal, and that's the idea, right?
Primal,
that
exactly.
sound is the sound, the universal sound. Creation. That's the idea.
Yeah, exactly. So I like it for that, and I also say namaste because I know some teachers that will say cheers or thanks, and that's fine. But for me, I don't go down the pub and say namaste when I have a pint. Maybe I don't drink anymore. But I say cheers. So for me, when I say namaste, it's like I'm in yoga.
Contextualizes what you're doing.
Exactly.
I heard an interesting podcast about that, actually, about namaste and the history of it, and how they were saying how it's a very formal way to say hello, and like you would never say it. And I was like, okay, maybe, but now it's become its own thing. And now in a yoga class, it is a sign of respect. He was saying how the translate, we've taken it very literally to say, I see the divine in you. And he was saying, I mean, that's the translation, but that's not actually how they use it in India. And I was like, okay, but isn't that even cooler that we've had this thing that didn't have meaning, we've attached meaning to it, and now it has this beautiful meaning. Like, what's wrong with that?
Well, listen to this. The next time you answer the phone, if you say hello, you're using it out of context. How about that? Because hello,
boom.
Boom. Alexander Graham Bell, when he was testing the phone out with Edison, hello was used to be 100 years ago. Hello was used as a form of expression, like hello, what's this?
Oh, get out, really?
Yeah, I'll go hello, like as in express surprise. So when Edison and Bell were testing out the phone, which obviously Alexander Graham Bell invented, Edison was like, "Hello," and then Bell.
That is fascinating
because Bell's he wanted to say ahoy.
Yeah, because that was proper hello then.
Yeah, ahoy, like it was a hunting call as well. And Bell decided that hello sounded like clearer over the phone. So, and that's why hello now is the most common way to answer the phone.
Which is funny because if he had a nervous disposition, then we may have just been answering the phone like, like that may have been hello. Because we would have gone like, that's quite good. It's funny, it's the same with trapeze. If you do trapeze, you don't say ready, because ready can sound like a lot of other things. So they say listo, which is then a lot easier to listo, which is some language for
I used the example of phone. You're using trapeze.
We have different backgrounds. Yeah,
exactly.
Different backgrounds.
Like, when you're doing trapeze.
I actually really liked it. I really liked it.
So you say, is that a French word?
It may well be, yeah. Listo is like how you say you're ready. I've forgotten. There was some very good example of they said ready can sometimes sound like something else. Or go can sound like no. That's the real problem. Yeah, Kev, I feel like, so you're asking, is it cultural appropriation? I say, maybe, who cares?
Yeah.
Those are my two answers to that.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's, I was going to say if there's someone who feels really strongly, but no, I don't feel like that. Spanish, there you go.
Spanish, thanks, Eric.
Yeah, and I feel like I listened to your podcast, and I feel like there should be a app on your podcast where you can ask questions while you're listening. So or adding comments in, do you know what I mean? Real time. So it'll be like at this time point, you're like, oh, Kevin said this, and this is what I would say. Because I find it so interesting. Like, I feel like interaction would be great, which is, I guess, why your live ones sell so well.
Yeah, the Dan one got coming up in a few weeks with Dan. There's like almost 30 people booked into that, but I that's why I suppose next time we do this, we can do a live Q&A.
I would like that.
Yeah,
I would like that. Actually, my workshop in Yoga Hub's changed now, so it's the next week. So I don't know if you're still doing your teacher training, but we could do that. It's like the 1st or something. We'll look at that.
Okay, we'll look at that.
But yeah, we could do something like that. I feel like that is cool, because that's the next step, right? Is to these podcasts, like we're discussing in the car here, make people feel like they are in the room.
Yeah,
and that's why it's soothing, because you feel like you're having a conversation with people, especially
why did your voice just get deeper there?
I don't know.
You're just getting all sultry now.
It's my arm. My arm has brought out this.
Yeah, there you go. You've
Yeah.
opened up your throat chakra.
Exactly.
Which is,
exactly.
yeah.
Which is now I'm speaking so eloquently and deeply.
But yeah. So you were saying.
Yeah. No, I feel like that is the next step, is to make it actually have people in the room, which I think is a great idea.
Yeah.
Bring people together. That's what yoga is. Community, union. Not only body, mind, spirit, but also people, which I think is always important. I think that's why classes are great. And I love doing my online stuff and putting out videos, but I would encourage people, go to a class, man. Go and plug yourself into a community, because it's getting harder to do. We don't have churches anymore, really.
Yeah.
A lot of people are being put off by church, but yoga is pretty neutral. You can go there and meet other people.
Man, that's what I've been saying lately. I'm like, there used to be a time within my lifetime where Sunday was a day of rest. We didn't do anything on a Sunday. All the shops were closed, and now it's a case of we're always on the go. We've always got something to do, and if you're not working, you have your phone with you, so you're like, I can reply to those emails, I can send those messages, so you're always on. And when you go to yoga class, it says, there's a sign outside most yoga studios saying no phone, or turn your phone off at least. Or normally it just says mobile free zone. So your phone is off, you're with other people, you're chanting, have your hands in namaskar, in the prayer position. And it is a bit like a church, but it's
it doesn't require, I feel like, you to buy into a lot of things. That, the barrier is quite low. We're not saying you're wrong or right doing these things. And also I feel like it's not about providing answers, but rather questions. Ooh. You're getting people to come in there and go, right, why do I feel like this? Yeah. Why do I get so angry about that? Because that's the big thing. Again, I think it's the same line of logic for me as the offense thing. Yeah, someone cutting me up isn't great in traffic, but why do I get so angry? Yeah. That's not their fault.
Yes, yeah.
There's something going on with me, and no one wants to do that. No one wants to go, what in me is making me react like that? I feel like a fully actualized person cannot be moved by anyone else. They're so sure about themselves, it doesn't matter what someone else says or does to them. They feel like there's something bigger there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll go and get some grub, but I just want to ask you before we finish, I think about community and stuff, this is probably a reason, I assume this is the reason why you're getting more involved in retreats. So this is a perfect time for you to sell some stuff.
Man, I tell you what, retreats, and you're so right. For me, the retreats came about as an extension of how I like to travel. Often I like to travel. I don't always have the ability to get people to come with me, my friends, because they have different schedules. So I loved the idea of traveling while making friends, doing the things I like to do, which are yoga, seeing sights, and training, and eating together. I miss eating together. I live on my own in London, and it's so nice. You sit around the table. So So I had this retreat in Bali, which was my first. This has been a year first for me. And it was great. And it's funny, the whole process, you have to think about it, like organize everything. And I'm not particularly well known for my organization. So the night before, I was so nervous. I was like, I've forgotten something. Like, I'm going to get there. I would have booked it for the wrong week. There's something obvious, but it was great, and I really enjoyed it. So as we finished, I was like, we're doing the same place again next year. So we've got this lovely dual luxury villa with interleading doors. So it's eight beds, 4 on either side, and the interleading doors, 2 private pools, and then we have a trainer staying on each side. So this time what we're going to do is divide people up kind of into teams, and every day there'll be like a silly competition between each side. So we'll have a red side and blue side, and each one of them will have their trainer. But as always, there's CrossFit every morning, which we rent out the space in Wanderlust Bali, which is a beautiful place. We've got Tom Bliss and Courtney Pruce with us. So we're training with them every day, yoga and meditation with me, and then excursions, all food, beach clubs, waterfalls, temples, the lot, all included. I just changed it this time. I don't know, you remember the currency there? It's mental, like 18,000 to 1. So we're forever stopping to draw cash. I just said, you know what? Now you just get yourself to Denpasar Airport, and then once you arrive, you don't take your wallet out.
Great idea.
If you didn't want to draw money, you don't have to. So I just thought that is a better system than stopping for money. I wanted to make it freer this time, but I was like, nah, I think let's not stop for money. everything's included.
Yeah, great
So
idea.
you're sorted. So we got that, and then more close to home, we got Sri Lanka in March 1st to the 8th, which was the D Fitz. I don't know if you know her, MMA boxing girl from Dublin. She's a real cool girl. What's that? From Galway, but she's based in Dublin. And she's going to come with us. We're going to do boxing, yoga, and surf lessons in Herikatia in Sri Lanka. So if you need any more information, email me yoga@thedownwithdoug.com or check out my website, thedownwithdoug.com, or Instagram. Guess what? Also, The Downward Doug. Make sure you put the, because there's other ones out there. Beware of cheap imitations. The Downward Doug.
I'm just sitting back and watch that poetry in motion.
Thank God for that. I don't know what happened. I blacked out.
That's great. Thanks, Doug.
Hey, it's as always a pleasure. Yeah, go on.
You close off. No, you go.
No, I said it's always a pleasure being here. I kind of always sad when we have to stop chatting. I feel like there's important stuff to discuss here. Like I say, when I listen to your podcast, I'm like, this is so right, and I'm like, I'm answering for you, or like wanting to interject and say, what about this? So yeah, keep up the good work. Is me.
Thank you, sir. Next one we'll do will be live then.
All right, can't wait.
IG live thing. Nice. Done. We're done. That's
All
it.
right, cool. All right, cool. Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Speak to you next time.
Boom. That is all from the Downward Doug. Until next time. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your friends on your IG stories or leave a review on iTunes. That always really helps. If you'd like to come to an event, check out Heels Overhead in Sligo, December 14th in Salt and Soul. That is on a Saturday, so if you'd like to come down for the weekend, make a little trip of it, a little excursion. All information can be found on my website, kevinboyleyoga.ie, kevinboyleyoga.ie, because I don't have the domain Kevin Boyle. He won't give it to me. Come on, Kev, give it up. So if you, kevinboyleyoga.ie is where I have all the information, but you can also find information and book directly on saltandsoul.ie. Yes, thank you again as always, and thank you so much to my sponsor, Small Changes, the organic, eco-friendly, plant-based store here in Ireland, Dublin, Drumcondra, soon to be in Glasnevin. Check them out if you fancy supporting the local community and supporting your own inner ecosystem. You can bring down your cup, they'll do a refill for you. They've got a juice bar, zero waste ethos. I always struggle with that. Those words. So yeah, that's all for me for now. As always, appreciate your support so much for listening, and I'll catch up with you next week. Bye.